Good morning and welcome to our monthly State of the Company update. As always, I'm broker owner Carl Sanfilippo. And if you haven't yet, please friend me on Facebook or follow us on Instagram so I keep up to dates on our social media profile as well. And if you haven't, also please like the company's Facebook and Instagram. And I'm excited to come to you live here in our brand new studio in the East Brunswick office. It came out great. We're thrilled to be getting settled in here. If you are watching this video on Facebook, please give us a big like, smash the love button. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing to our channel. Today, what our topic is we are going to unpack NAR's 2021 buyer and seller profile. I think 2021 was one of the most interesting markets we've ever seen. So I'm excited to unpack what buyers and sellers did in 2021 compared to 40 years ago in 1981. And I think some of the findings are going to be surprising and it's going to shock you a little bit because I know when I did my research and I prepared for this, it shocked me. So I'm excited to share that all with you. First, couple housekeeping notes and save the dates. June 2nd, we are having our first big company-wide office meeting at Forest Gate Country Club. We are going to have breakfast. We're going to have all 4 of our offices there. We're going to have some raffles, some giveaways, some prizes. We're going to unpack some legal issues that are happening in the market. We're going to talk about some iBuying that's come to New Jersey. We have a lot of different topics. We're going to hear from our mortgage company, our title company, as well as our property management company. This is going to be a valuable meeting. I am going to give you a market update of what we're seeing in the market. If you haven't, make sure you watch my last State of the Company update. I talked about then shifting market and what you should be doing in a shifting market. I think I've heard the word shift more in the last 30 days than I have in probably 40 years of my life. So if you haven't, make sure you go back to our last State of the Company update. And I talk about actionable things you can be doing in a shifting market. Also, save the date on June 8th. Our Chief Revenue Officer, Michelle Gibson, is going to be doing our monthly industry event at Forest Gate Country Club. She's going to be talking about the closing conversation. She's going to give you 5 techniques to increase your conversion rate instantly. If you were at Michelle's last training, if you weren't at Michelle's last training, it's uploaded in the center. She did the listing presentation. You'll see Michelle gave actionable steps that you can implement in your business right away. And we're going to be doing that on June 8th as well, when she's going to be talking about the closing conversation. We're going to go over closing techniques. She even's going to let me be a guest of hers for the training, and I'm going to role play a little bit with her. So again, save the date, June 8th at Forest Gate. It's going to be a awesome training. We're excited to do it. It's going to be really valuable for today. I also want to give a big shout out to all of our panelists. If you didn't watch it, we had our Mother's Day edition of our watch party. It was great to hear everybody's stories and for them to unpack their history in the business and how they form a team with either their daughter or son. So we appreciate all the panelists who did it. And we also appreciate everybody who came to watch. In June, we're going to have another watch party. So save the date. We're going to be putting that out on our training calendar, and we're going to be talking about converting buyers at a high level with some of the top buyers, agents in our company. So keep an eye out for that. Also, if you've been watching a lot of the real estate news, you're going to see that a lot of mortgage companies have been laying off thousands of employees. So it happened in 2020 when rates dropped, a lot of refinances happened, a lot of purchase business was happening, that these mortgage companies really ramped up to handle the volume of business. But since we've seen the rates go up about 2 to 3 points, we've seen the refis really drop off, and we've seen mortgage companies do massive layoffs. It's been all over the news about the layoffs and on the articles and everything I read online. So with that being said, I'm excited to announce that we are growing as a mortgage company, First Team Mortgage. I'd like to welcome our newest processor, Marilyn Velez. She's an experienced processor who has joined our team. And we also want to give a huge shout out to Joanne. Joanne's been with in our company in different assets for probably about 6-7 years now. And she is going to officially be retiring in June. So I just wanted to give a special thank you to Joanne for everything she's done. And also excited that as rates across the grow, you see a lot of refinance business die out. Our mortgage company does majority purchase business. So while others are contracting, we're excited to be expanding. So changing gears a little bit is I want to unpack today's topic, and that's the NAR home buyer profile. They profile and compare buyers and sellers from the year 2021 compared to 1981. So they compare the 40-year difference. To me, there's a lot of things that surprise me, and I'm excited to share it with you. First and foremost, this one probably will not be that much of a shock, but 95% of homeowners are using the web to do their house searches, and 7% are using the newspaper. So I'm not a gambling man, but if I was, I would definitely play the odds of 95% compared to 7%. So what I would do is I would make sure my online presence was where I wanted it. And that means my Zillow profile, whether you pay for Zillow or not, Zillow just searches real high, is up to date, updated headshot, updated information. Because if 95% of people are searching online, you just want to make sure your online profile is exactly where you want it and you want how it to be, where if you're advertising a lot in the newspaper, you're only really appealing to a small percentage of home buyers and sellers. And this is based on NAR stats. In 2021, 87% of people financed the purchase of their home. Now, in 2021, we saw some of the lowest rates that we ever had in history, and still 87% of people financed their home compared to 1981. If you were in the market or know anything about the market in 1981, and obviously I was not in the market, I was born in 1981, but I have done my research and know the history of markets. In 1981, the mortgage rates were extremely high. So you would think that less people financed their house if the rates were a lot higher, but the opposite's true. 93% of buyers financed their house in 1981 as compared to 87% in 2021. Now, what are some of the reasons for that? One is the baby boomers. So the baby boomers were probably buying their first house around 1981 and financing it. And then 40 years later, they were selling the house and buying a new one in their retirement house using cash proceeds from the house they bought around 1981. So I think that's some of the reasons. But the reason I like to bring this stat up is even when rates increase, people need mortgages. If people are buying a house, people's situation in life change, they're going to need a mortgage. So even as rates increase, it doesn't mean we're going to see less people financing it. In 1981, 20% was the typical down payment. And in 2021, the typical down payment was 13%. So again, 1981, people were putting down more down payments at 20%. In 2021, it's 13%. Some of the reasons for that is we just have more mortgage products than we used to in 1981. And this is allowing more people to lend. And I think too in 2021 is we saw people want to put down less money if they could because rates were so low. So they want to be able to get a mortgage for the most amount they could because the money was so cheap. The age of the first-time home buyer. In 1981, the age of the first-time home buyer was 29 years old. In 2021, the age of the first-time buyer was 33. So what does that mean to me that in 2011, in 2021, we have older buyers. So what happens is the 33-year-olds are still millennials. So millennials are our biggest group of first-time home buyers. So you really, if you like working with first-time home buyers, and you're looking for buyers, the millennial age group is the ones that are buying in the biggest droves right now. And we saw in 1981, the average age 29, now it's 33. We see people starting to do home buying, marriage, kids later than we saw 40 years ago. So one of the most interesting things that I noticed when I was looking through the NAR buyer and seller profile is what is one of the biggest changes in the real estate market between 1981 and 2021? Right. If you have a guess, drop it in the comments now. But the biggest thing that has changed in the last 40 years in this business, in my opinion, is technology. In 1981, the agent was the gatekeeper to the properties. In 2021, you can go on any website and find all the properties you want. So do you think that people used realtors more in 1981 or less in 1981 as compared to 2021? Take a quick guess and put your guess in the comments. So in 2021, 88% of people bought a house with an agent, okay? In 1981, 82% bought a house without an agent. So even though in the last 40 years, the real estate market's been bombarded, and I mean bombarded with tech companies, I don't even have to tell you, you know who they are. And their goal when they first came out, I said they were going to replace the realtor. They were going to disrupt the real estate market. But what shows is at 40 years later is realtors are more valuable now than ever. Because what's happening with all this technology and all this information that's put out there, it's confusing to buyers and sellers. So our job as agents is to be educating this. So if you're watching this saying, hey, where's this real estate business going? Is this going to put realtors out of business with all these tech companies? History and data shows you it's not. And this is also important to tell your buyers and sellers and to demonstrate your value. So in 2021, 34% of buyers were first-time home buyers. 82% sold single, and out of that, 82% of the houses that were sold last year were single-family detached homes. And I think that number is probably a little bit higher than usual because what we saw with COVID was a lot of people want to get out of condos and townhouses and move into single family, but 82% of houses were single-family detached. And interesting is since the pandemic hit, what's happened in New Jersey? We've seen a ton of people move out of state, go to Florida, the Carolinas, Texas. A lot of people from California move to Texas. Even though a lot of that has happened, is the majority of buyers over the last 2 years only moved within 15 miles of their current house. So what is important about that is if you're working with somebody to sell their house, the chances are they're only going to be moving within 15 miles of that current house. Now, mind you, this is a national survey, so the numbers might be a little bit different here in New Jersey, but a majority of people who are selling are moving within 15 miles. So let's talk a little bit about stats about the real estate professionals. 47% of buyers use an agent referred to them by family or friends. So almost half the buyers out there in 2021 were referred to their buyers. 13% used an agent that they used before. So what does that mean? Let's look at that. 47 and 13, that's 60% of buyers were either referred to an agent or they used the agent that they used previously. That's 60% of the market. That means 40% of the buyers are people who are found online, who expired FSBO. 60%. 73% only interviewed one agent for buyers. 90% of buyers would use their agent again or recommend their agent to others. So let's unpack that a little bit. Is when you're looking for business is let's look at the data. 60% used an agent that was referred or they used before. 90% of the buyers would recommend their agents. So if you have had 100 buyers you've worked with, that means percentage-wise, 90% of them would be, if you had 100 buyers that you have worked with, 90 of those buyers would be looking to refer you. But the problem is if you're not staying top of mind with the buyers that you've worked with, you are not going to be getting the referrals. So at minimum is one of your strongest lead generation tools for especially us, the experienced agents in our company, is you have to look at working your referrals and your past clients because the numbers are telling you should be. All right. So let's flip this to sellers. The average age of the seller was 56 years old. Okay. 68% used their agent through a referral. 82% only connected with one agent. So what is that telling you is if you're going in to a listing appointment, it's an 82% chance that they're only interviewing you. So what does that mean? I'm going to tie this back into Michelle's training last at Forest Gate about the ultimate listing presentation, leveling up your one-step listing presentation. Is you have to be so confident in your listing presentation that you're going in there and you are confident and you are nailing it because you only want to be the one that they're interviewing. So I'm sure a lot of the 18% that interviewed more than one agent was they brought an agent in who didn't have a great presentation and wasn't confident, and they felt like they had to go interview others. Again, 68% of sellers found their agent through referrals. So that's just tying back to your database, and everything has to be solid because that means only 32% are going through internet, going through Zillow, going through your cold calling. So again, your database. I talked about this in a shifting market last time, is you have to be 100% confident and 100% diligent with your database. 53% use the agent that sold them their house. 85% would use the agent to buy who sold their house if they were moving within 10%. So, excuse me, let me rephrase that. 53% used that agent to go buy their next house, the one that sold. But if it was within 10 miles of the house, 85% used that agent. So what's important about that is, a lot of your database and a lot of sellers that you could get recommended to could be 2 deals. Right? It could be 2 deals. And you can control the situation. So it's just so important. Is a lot of people are saying, hey, Carl, I want to work with sellers right now. I want to work with sellers. The market's tough. I get that. I also think things are going to shift. And if you're working with buyers, you're going to start getting more offers accepted. But as you're building your real estate businesses, you got to work with buyers. You got to work with buyers to build that referral database, because they turn into sellers. Or if you work with a buyer and they sell you a house, it doesn't mean they won't refer you a seller. They're not only going to refer you buyers. The general public's not thinking you only work with buyers. They're thinking about you working with real estate. So any agent looking to grow their business, I always say, is the one thing you need to focus on is transactions, because that momentum creates action. So the more transactions you're going to do, the better job you do, the more you put in your pipeline of transactions, the more referrals you're going to get for buyers and sellers. So when I was in the business and I built my real estate business in the first 3 years, I focused on one thing and one thing only. I never looked at price. I never looked at the air. I focused on doing transactions, because I knew if I was doing transactions, everything else would work itself out. Switching gears one more time, let's talk about for sale by owners. Only 7% of homes in 2021 were sold through for sale by owners. Even more interesting, the majority of the FSBO sellers sold to somebody they knew. Let me repeat that. 7% of homes were sold through for sale by owners in 2021. Out of that, a majority, over 50% of those homes, the seller knew the buyer, had a relationship with them. What this just shows, validates more, is that agents are more important than ever, because not everybody knows somebody who wants to buy their house. Right? It's important information to know when you're speaking of for sale by owners. And the median price of a home sold by for sale by owner was $260,000. The median price sold by an agent was $318,000. We are talking about over a $50,000 difference when sold with an agent than sold by a for sale by owner. So this is powerful information if you're speaking with a for sale by owner to use about the strength of using an agent. So we are more validated in 2021 than we even were in 1981. So I hope you guys found some of this information useful and helpful. If anyone wants to get more information on this, feel free to reach out to me. If you enjoyed this episode of The State of the Company, please like the Facebook post, smash the love button. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel so you see our future ones coming out. Again, we have a lot of great things coming up. June 2nd, office meeting. Hope to see everybody there. It's our first office meeting with all 4 offices. If you haven't, connect with me on social media and keep an eye out for our June edition of the State of the Company update. I hope everyone has a safe and terrific Memorial Day